Today we're going to be looking at the Trend Alpha Expert Advisor by DaneTrades. So in the interest of transparency, Dane and I have emailed back and forth for a few weeks because we're both developers in the space, and I do have respect for the systems which he's developed. But just to let you guys know that that is the case. And he actually told me that he launched this EA and said that I can make a review on it and to be honest and transparent and pretty much just give my opinion. So effectively here, Dane has already created the Revert Edge EA, which is more of a mean reversion type system. So I think this is more his trend following style bot, which is meant to complement the Revert Edge, because obviously this one will work better in more trending markets, whereas Revert Edge will tend to work well in more like a mean reversion or range bound conditions. I have found that I personally like to develop EAs which work on trending markets. However, it's also really good to be able to develop more mean reversion style bots, and I have a few on that too, but it's just, they're not as, I find the risk reward is usually not as good, but you can get very good win rates with them. Just because it's good to have both though, as you then have a more diversified portfolio. And if you enter a period of choppy consolidation, you won't necessarily have as bad of a drawdown because you can still benefit from some systems doing well in more of the mean reverting style markets. So it gives you an additional layer of diversification. So here he's saying that this follows like the traditional trending pairs, and all of which makes a lot of sense. So US equity indices, gold, Bitcoin, and the yen pairs. Also, all of this makes complete sense. The one thing that I'd be a bit apprehensive about is running yen pairs too much, just because like NASDAQ and S&P and gold, and to a lesser extent Bitcoin, all have a fundamental reason for going up, particularly with NASDAQ and the S&P. Like as long as the US economy goes up over time and you can find 100 companies or 500 good companies which are good, the index should go up because there's a rotation of companies which perform poorly. Gold is typically seen as a hedge against inflation, so it does generally go up over time. And what we've seen so far with Bitcoin is since inception, it has generally gone up. There's less of a, like the Bitcoin guys will correct me here, but there is a fundamental like scarcity reason as to why Bitcoin should go up long term as well. You don't have the company reasoning behind it, but there still is a fundamental reasoning as to why it should go up. And effectively, so this type of system does do well on that, and because there's an inherent trend, there's a fundamental reason as to why you should have a trend. And the same reasoning is behind my longbow systems. Like you're buying something which should generally go up, so you do have like an inherent edge where you're just capturing the risk premium of a risk-on asset, which should go up over time. So all of that makes a lot of sense. I totally agree with his choice of pairs. He's also saying that like he's not using any sort of crazy marketing language here, claiming that he uses like some sort of genetic algorithm in order to develop trading systems. He's saying that this is a real trading system, no manipulated backtests, and each position has a stop loss and take profit, some of which will split it. So trend following is probably the oldest form of systematic trading. If you ever read books about like the turtle traders or even like Donchian traders and guys from like way back in the day before technology was really super advanced and people were still trading in pits, trend following was one of the most long-term profitable strategies or style of strategies. So I totally see what he's doing here. I wouldn't be surprised if he's using some sort of channel breakout or like a Donchian channel breakout. So there's definitely something behind this. It's a real strategy. It's worked for over 100 years. So probably there is a pretty solid fundamental bias behind it. And once again, you can trade multiple different pairs. And so far we're seeing like his back tests look good. This looks to be a fairly diversified portfolio. He also does have a DarwinX account, that's my understanding, and that he will be publishing a DarwinX signal soon. Or, pardon me, he does have a signal on DarwinX. You can just ask him for the link. So that's good. So I guess I'm not so sure why he's not posting the link here. Maybe it takes a bit of time for the signal to get a bit longer, but as long as he has one, I'm sure you can just ask him about it. So now, moving over to the MT5 terminal, it's doing what he says it's doing. This is clearly a trend following breakout system. So clearly like we have, when there's winners, he holds them for a long time. Some of the positions he also does, he has two different take profits, as he said. And when he has losers, he tends to cut them pretty quick. So here we're seeing that it's the start of a new trend, but it's not actually, and it stops out fast. So really good, classic trend following of let your winners run and cut your losers short. So all makes sense. What is interesting is that he's actually taking a bidirectional approach. So he's going both long and short. and it seems to have been favoring him rather well. I imagine he's using some sort of ATR-based stop because he's actually closing his shorts pretty quick, but he's letting his longs run for a really long period of time, which is pretty interesting. It's almost like he's using a different size profit target on his longs versus his shorts. I'm curious as to how, because like, yeah, let's look, because here, for instance, every time he takes up these big longs, he has these big winners. But when he shorts, they're actually like quite a bit shorter, for lack of a better word. And that's an interesting approach. So I'm curious as to how he's actually codifying that and why he made that distinction. It can actually make sense because generally speaking, if you have something that has a long-term long bias, you might not want to have super long shorts just because of the fact that if something over the long term goes up, you probably don't want to be trying to like hold a short position for too long. So that could be the logic behind that. But that's actually a very interesting approach. So quite neat. And yeah, there's definitely some sort of breakout based system here, be it like a channel breakout. So yeah, it's a tried and tested trend following system. The unique thing is how he's doing his exits. His exits are actually pretty advanced. And you can pick a whole bunch of different pairs. You have a max risk setup here. So far, we're seeing very low drawdowns over this period. I guess I'm using fairly conservative risk, but overall, it looks really good. It's a classic system. He's added his own unique twist to it, which is always good. And let me see if I can run a visual backtest just to see what's going on. And you would need to, if you're trading certain currency pairs, likely put in place a suffix or a prefix just to make everything match. Oh. My computer is being a bit laggy. Unfortunately, this does happen when you try and run a lot of pairs all on one bot. So perhaps I'll pause the video for a few seconds, and while this loads, I will resume as soon as we're up and running. Okay, so I actually just switched it to 1 minute open, high, low, close to speed up the testing. And realistically, like you should always run the full back test on every tick based on real ticks, which I did. But if we're just running a quick one here, I think it's reasonable to, just to kind of visually see how it works, it's reasonable to use the 1 minute open, high, low, close. So it's actually a very interesting approach. He is placing stop losses, which are dynamic. So they are varying based on the day. He's entering with market orders. So if we can see here, market. And every time he enters, he has both a take profit and a stop loss. Interesting. It's actually really interesting because it's different than most traditional trend, like most traditional trend followers, they don't set a take profit. They just let it go as long as possible. But he seems to be setting. Not always. Interesting. So sometimes he does set a traditional take profit, sometimes not, I don't think. So let's wait and see if he's also using a trailing stop loss. Because for a trend following system, that would actually be a bit unique. Typically, with trend followers, you don't set a stop loss. Pardon me, you don't set a take profit, you only set a stop loss. Because if it runs or if you hit a really big trend, you want to kind of let that go for as long as possible. And sometimes he has like a double take profit where he takes partials. Yeah, so very creative actually. And I'm trying to see if we can enter a big trend somewhere. And he's also using some trailing stop losses too for some of the positions. He might be just going to break even. Okay, let's take this last position here. And we hit a take profit. And we are also moving some of the stop losses, I believe, to break even. So not to go too much into the weeds, I think this is actually a really interesting system. The entry is a basic, not basic, but like a classic breakout likely of a channel, but his exit management is actually really advanced and really interesting. So he's doing some that have a double take profit. I believe he's also doing some at stop loss moving. It seemed to be to break even, but I could be mistaken. And that's actually a really interesting approach because most traders obsess over the entry and they spend most of their time there, where in reality it has been proven that you can flip a coin provided your exits are very, very intelligently done, and you can still be very profitable. So the fact that this is a very exit-focused system is really interesting. So there's something here. I think Dane did a really good job. And if people want to check this out, I think it's very exciting. So yeah, kudos to Dane for developing this. It's an interesting form of exit management and tried and tested trading strategy. So guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.